So I've worked on a lot of turntables, but I have not yet made a video about one of the most important parts of turntable restoration, which is polishing the dust cover. In part because I haven't been very good at it and have not had a whole lot to add to the conversation. But through reading and watching other videos, I do feel like I've learned a few things that might be worth passing on to other viewers. So based on the wisdom of others, these are the procedures I'm going to use. So progressively using finer and finer grits of sandpaper, and then polishing with some products from a company called Novus. So here are the products I'm going to be using. So first of all, you're going to want to get a selection of very fine sandpapers. So I ended up eventually buying 2 selections because the first group I got did not have fine enough paper in it. But this goes all the way from 320, although I'm not going to start with 320, I'm going to start with 400, and goes all the way to 10,000, but I'm only going to go up to 5,000. So this is pretty inexpensive if you buy that multi-pack. So I started off doing this with a headlight polishing kit, and coming with the kit was these little sanding blocks. These are equivalent of sandpaper. And some spray lubricant, but I wore these out and also used up all the spray lubricant. So I'm just going to use this as sort of like a sanding block, and this is just distilled water now. The original stuff seemed to work better, but water is fine too. So then we're going to turn to polishing. So we're going to use the Novus 3-step process. So Novus 3 is heavy scratch remover, Novus 2 is fine scratch remover, Novus 1 is clean, shine, and protect. And all of these are important. I started off trying to just use Novus 2, but that really wasn't sufficient. You really have to start with this one. And the kit I bought came with some towels that are very similar to those blue shop towels that will work. So I'm going to start with 400 grit sandpaper. So in my experience, if like this cover here, there are some gouges in it, if you don't get them out at this stage, you're probably never going to get them out. So it's the coarsest sandpaper that's going to do most of that work. So I'm going to start with 400 and see if that is sufficient. So what I do is I take a pad that came with my headlight restoration kit. I found this continues to be useful. Take a piece of my sandpaper, cut off a bit, and then use this. So I'm going to wet the whole thing down, and then sand first back and forth, and then up and down. So this one is fairly easy to work on because it's nice and flat. There's no emblem in the middle. There's nothing to get in the way. For right now, I'm just going to do the top part of it, and we'll do the front later on. So make sure you get all the way to the edges and also to the corners. So that is back and forth. So I'm going to wipe off this. So the hazy white stuff that comes off is the actual plastic. So you don't want to go any deeper or any harder than absolutely necessary. So it's much cloudier than it was, but many of those marks are gone, but not all of them. So I'm going to give it another go with the 400. So that is a big improvement. It's got most of those gouges out of it. Just going to give it one more shot. Okay, so the end result is not going to be perfect, but that definitely is an important start. So I'm also going to do this front leading edge here because that's going to need it too. But let's move on to the next finer grit of sandpaper. So this is 600 grit. And this certainly does look worse before it gets better, but it will get better. So you can feel it biting here. And once you do the initial sanding and get most of the gouges out, I find you don't really need to go over it too much with the other grits, that you can sort of feel them doing their work, and then you can move on to the next grit. So that was 600. So looking quite cloudy, but also a lot smoother. This is 800. So this sandpaper is not necessarily single use. So one of the things I like to do is, if it doesn't show the markings on the back of it when I cut a piece of it off, like this one, I'll just write that on there. So I know when I look at it again what I'm using. So this is 1000. 1200. I'm just going to use every grit of sandpaper that I have. It's 1500. This is 2000. 2500. This is 3000. And this is 5,000. So the first package of sandpaper that I bought only went up to 3,000, but I found that that really wasn't sufficient. So going all the way to 5,000 definitely seems to make a difference. All right, so almost all of those gouges are out of it. You can see some of the marks, and it's quite cloudy, but already that is a significant improvement. Now comes the elbow grease part of it. So now on to the polishing. So I'm going to start with Novus Level 3 Heavy Scratch Remover, and I find this is really a crucial step. This does a lot of work. I'm just going to use a piece of a shop paper towel here. The kit came with some pads, which are pretty much the same sort of thing, but it seems to work okay. I'm going to shake this up. So I've seen some people say that they use toothpaste to polish their turntable lids. And to be honest, this stuff kind of has the consistency of toothpaste. So again, we're going to go in a back and forth and up and down motion for this step. Okay, we're definitely getting there. So now on to the next phase. So this is Novus Level 2 Fine Scratch Remover. I'm going to shake this up. Now for this one, I'm going to use a microfiber pad, and for this I'm going to be going in a circular motion. And this is really where effort is rewarded. So the more you put into it, the more you'll get out of it. So I'm going to sort of do this in quadrants and then see what kind of a difference it's making. And I may need to add some more of the stuff to make this work, because this absorbs a lot of it. All right, you can already see the difference there between the polished and the unpolished part of it. So I did a good full 60 seconds here, again adding more material when it was necessary, and that's for each quadrant. So this is the part that takes the most effort, really, but it's rewarded. So look at that. That is really an amazing transformation. It's not perfect, One could do better, you could do better, but it's a huge improvement. We're not quite done yet. There's one more step. That is Novus Level 1 polish, which seems to sort of seal the plastic. It can get a little bit cloudy here, even if you wipe it off. So it seems to stop that from happening and just put a nice buff on it. So for this, I'm going to use a clean microfiber towel. And I'm going to go over the whole thing with this, even the parts of it that I did not polish. And I am finished. So look at the before and after. This is a huge improvement. So a little bit of gouging here, but again, the more you take off, the thinner the plastic gets. So I think that's a good compromise. So for an old turntable, that's certainly an acceptable look. So hopefully you learned something. I certainly have over the course of doing a number of these. This one has turned out about the best one that I've ever done. So thanks for watching.